I suddenly woke up from my dream, realizing that I was sitting peacefully in my office chair. Looking around, I saw only a few colleagues busily focused on their computer screens. I was stunned for a long time before finally confirming that this was not a dream. I had actually been reborn. Since fate has given me a chance to start over, I'm determined to stay away from Mary for the rest of my life, preferably never to see her again, no matter how far apart we are. I opened my computer intending to write a resignation letter. However, my thoughts involuntarily drifted back to the experiences of my past life. In my previous life, at the summer job fair at the end of June, a terrible accident occurred. A patient with a mental illness suddenly broke free from his mother's grasp, grabbed a sharp knife from a fruit stand, and crazily charged into the crowd. The job fair was bustling with people, and many students were caught off guard, falling into pools of blood. In the end, the patient rushed straight to our company's recruitment booth and lunged at President Mary. At that moment, everyone was so scared that they were frozen in place, but I, without hesitation, rushed forward and stood in front of Mary. The sharp knife plunged deeply into my abdomen, but I still held on to the patient tightly until the incident subsided. Afterwards, I was urgently taken to the hospital, and because the knife had pierced my spleen, the doctors had to remove it. At that moment, I felt my life was plunged into endless darkness and despair. However, what I didn't expect was that Mary suddenly proposed to me in public, promising to take care of me for a lifetime. I was filled with doubt, but in that situation, I still agreed to her. After getting married, Mary took care of me meticulously, even wishing she could feed me by hand at every meal. However, because I had lost my spleen, my body became extremely weak, often suffering from persistent high fevers, with my temperature frequently hovering around 38 or 39 degrees. Mary would always stay by my bedside all night, bringing me water and medicine tirelessly. At that time, I felt that being able to marry a wife like Mary was truly a blessing earned over several lifetimes. But it wasn't until the last moment of my life that I realized she married me not out of love or gratitude, but in an attempt to exploit the fame that my acts of bravery brought her, seeking more convenience for her career. Every day, she hoped I would die sooner so she could rid herself of me, this burden. She even secretly threw away the special medicine the doctor prescribed for me, giving me fake drugs obtained from who knows where. No wonder I only lived a short 10 years in my previous life. It turns out this was all her scheme. Her heart is truly cruel. So in this lifetime, I must stay away from this woman whose heart is as venomous as a snake. I snapped back to reality from my memories, lifted my shirt, and touched my abdomen. There was no ugly scar. My spleen was still intact inside my belly. Everything still had a chance, not only for myself, but I also want to save those young people who unfortunately lost their lives in that accident, so they too can be reborn like I was. Thinking of this, I turned off the resignation application. I know very well that relying solely on my own strength is far from enough to prevent that accident from happening. I also need to leverage the company's resources and the help of others. So, I took out a pen and paper, pondering what to do next. Just then, a colleague came over, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, "George, don't you check the company group? The bosses have messaged you many times in there." My heart tightened. Suddenly, I took out my phone and saw that Mary had indeed messaged me several times. What could she possibly want from me for no reason? With a heart full of doubts, I still went upstairs to see her. The moment I walked in her office, Mary suddenly looked up, her gaze locking tightly onto me. My heart raced. She was still as beautiful and captivating as ever, her long wavy hair framing her face like a perfectly carved jade sculpture. No matter what, she took care of me for 10 years of my past life, and as long as one is human, it's impossible not to feel some attachment to that time. Seeing her again, my eyes actually became a bit moist, and I felt an urge to cry. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, and asked, "Mary, what do you need from me?" Mary came to her senses, gestured for me to sit on the sofa, and warmly poured me a cup of tea. Alarm bells immediately rang in my mind. The painful lessons from my past made me acutely aware that beneath this woman's gentle exterior lay an incredibly cruel heart. She could even be ruthless enough to plot against her own husband. I looked at her coldly, without saying a word. Mary sat across from me and said softly, "You've been at the company for 2 years now, and for this summer recruitment fair, I want you to take charge." I was even more confused. In my previous life, the recruitment was clearly the responsibility of the HR department. Our business department only participated in the interviews. As the saying goes, when something is unusual, there must be something strange. Without thinking, I refused, saying, "Mary, I am very clear about my abilities and cannot take on this heavy responsibility. If there's nothing else, I'll go back to work now." But Mary's next sentence made it impossible for me to refuse. "I'm not discussing this with you, but rather informing you. This summer recruitment fair is very important, and after careful consideration, I believe you are the only one in the company suitable to take on this responsibility." I was moved. After all, I was just worrying about how to use the company's resources to prepare. Now that Mary has assigned this task to me, it feels a bit risky, but as long as I can save the person, I am willing to have some interaction with her. However, I must remain vigilant towards her at all times. I gritted my teeth, nodded, and said, "Okay, thank you for Mary's guidance." After returning to the office, Mary quickly posted a notice in the company group that I was in charge of this recruitment fair, and she specifically tagged everyone. A colleague quietly leaned over, looking at me in surprise. "We've worked our fingers to the bone and haven't landed such a good job. The boss has put you in charge of the job fair. Are you going to get a promotion and a raise, marry a rich and beautiful woman, and reach the peak of your life?" I smiled bitterly in my heart. Just like in my past life, after marrying Mary, everyone thought I was a winner in life. But who knows how tragic my ultimate fate is? If they knew that my brief life was ended by Mary's own hands, I wonder if they would still envy me. Forget it. I don't want to think about these things anymore. I have more important things to do. That afternoon, I completed the plan and added the relevant personnel to the WeChat work group for the job fair, showing them the list of materials. However, the group immediately erupted in discussion, with everyone expressing doubts because I requested the preparation of protective gear, such as stab-resistant vests, cut-resistant gloves, and shields. My colleagues in the HR department thought I was being ridiculous and asked to hold a meeting for me to explain my specific reasons. I agreed, thinking to myself that I had to find a suitable excuse to persuade them. I didn't expect that Mary would also attend this meeting. During the meeting, the HR was very angry and accused me of deliberately showing off. I knew he was unhappy because I had taken a job from the HR department, so I let him calm down first. Then, with a serious expression, I said to everyone, "This year has the highest number of graduates. The job fair will definitely be crowded. It would be best if we don't need these preparations, but it's always good to be prepared in case of any unexpected situations." HR still wanted to lose their temper, but Mary suddenly raised her hand to stop everyone's discussion and said, "Let's go with George's plan. We all need to wear the stab-resistant vests. If you think they look bad, just put a coat over them." Everyone else had nothing to say, and I was also quite surprised. In fact, I had prepared many excuses, but before I could use them, Mary made a direct decision without much thought. I took the opportunity to suggest that everyone should do some physical exercise together before the job fair. It might come in handy at a critical moment. Now everyone couldn't sit still. "George, please stop putting us through this. We're already exhausted from work every day. Where do we find the energy to exercise? Besides, you shouldn't worry about our personal time, right?" I raised my hand to signal everyone to listen to my explanation, but no one paid attention to me. Everyone was chattering away. Mary tapped on the table to quiet her colleagues and said, "I support your suggestion. During this time before the job fair, everyone can leave work early. I will run at a gym. The cost will be covered by the company." I was stunned and couldn't understand what was going on. After being reborn, I felt like Mary had become a completely different person, making me feel incredibly unfamiliar. But none of this matters anymore. I don't want to think about her at all. Once this job fair is over, I will resign, and from then on, we will be worlds apart, completely unrelated. At that moment, Mary suddenly reached out to touch my thigh. Go ahead and do it. No matter what you do, I will support you. I felt as if I'd been bitten by a venomous snake, quickly moving my leg away and coldly refusing to look at her. Mary was taken aback for a moment, and the smile on her face instantly froze. After coming out of the conference room, my colleagues looked at me with strange expressions. I knew they had misunderstood something, but I couldn't be bothered to explain. After everyone else had left work, I still stayed at the company, continuing to refine the concept for the job fair. Regardless of the reason, Mary's support for me gives me no reason not to make this job fair perfect. I decided to set up isolation facilities at the booth. If acrylic doesn't work, it'll switch to stainless steel railings. Anyway, how much it costs is Mary's concern. I only care about how to maximize everyone's safety and save more lives. I don't know how long it has been, but Mary walked over and placed a cup of coffee on the table. There are still several days until the job fair, so I still need a rest. Her gentle voice of concern made me feel as if I had returned to a past life. For those 10 years, she had used such tenderness to lead me step by step toward death. Looking down at the coffee on the table, I immediately recalled the medicine boxes she had discarded in the trash in my previous life, and my heart felt as if it had been gently torn open. The pain was unbearable. I pulled my hand away from hers and, suppressing my emotions, said, "Thank you for your concern, Mary. I'm not dead tired yet." Mary said nothing, quietly sitting beside me and watching. Her face showed no expression. I felt uneasy under her gaze and couldn't help but put away my notebook and get up to leave. She followed me and linked her arm with mine, saying, "There are no more buses at this time. Let me take you back." I broke free from her hand again and coldly replied, "No need to trouble Mary. I have legs and can walk by myself." Mary stopped in her tracks, her face displaying a look of utter astonishment. I walked hurriedly, almost fleeing in panic, just wanting to get out of her sight as quickly as possible. Why, in this lifetime, do we clearly have no reason to intersect again? So why does she still want to entangle with me? I don't know how I got home. As soon as I walked in the door, I collapsed in bed. However, she was still in my dreams. Mary lay in my arms, whispering words I couldn't quite hear. I kissed her passionately until tears woke me up. I wiped away my tears fiercely and turned to look. Out the window, the sky was already bright at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The colleagues all left work early to go to the gym, secretly delighted as opportunities for paid exercise are rare. Soon, the gym was filled with their shouts and cheers as they competed with each other. 10 minutes later, I turned off the treadmill and stepped down to catch my breath. At that moment, Mary walked over, holding a towel to wipe the sweat from my forehead. For a brief moment, I felt a bit dazed as her lifted face seemed to overlap with my dreams. But when I caught the familiar scent of almonds on the towel, I snapped back to reality and suddenly turned my head to avoid her. Mary didn't pay much attention and handed me the thermos. "You can't drink ice water right after exercising. I added a bit of salt and taurine, and it's good for your body." I didn't look at her, but turned my head to find a few colleagues sneaking laughs in this direction. I didn't want to make a scene in front of my colleagues, so I pushed the thermos aside and whispered to Mary, "Thank you, Mary, but you don't have to worry about me. I know to drink water when I'm thirsty and to rest when I'm tired. I'm not a child." After saying that, I turned and left, leaving Mary standing there at a loss. Her expression looked very aggrieved and lonely, like an abandoned child. My heart felt as if it had been violently tugged. But soon, I remembered her actions in a past life. She always liked to deceive others with this kind of aggrieved expression. While taking a shower, a few colleagues gathered around and said in a sarcastic tone, "I didn't see this coming, George. You can make Boss Mary act like a wronged little wife, wiping sweat and bringing water." "Exactly. We don't have that kind of luck. All we can do is feel envy and hatred." I retorted angrily, "If you want to drink water, why don't you go get it and see if it will poison you?" A few people laughed heartily, mocking each other as they left. I was also filled with doubts, but never mind, there's no need to think about it anymore. How could I possibly have feelings for a woman who once harmed me? However, Mary had no intention of giving up. She was like my shadow, either bringing me food and water every day or urging me to take a break. I no longer wanted to care about what she intended to do, as the job fair was just around the corner. When the organizer notified that the exhibition booth could be set up, I immediately rushed to the venue, and Mary followed me. She saw me staring blankly with red eyes, took my hand to sit beside her, and stood behind me to massage my neck. I know you value this job fair a lot, but don't carry everything on your own. I will always be there to support you. I didn't pay attention to her words at that moment. My mind was filled with thoughts of what to do if I couldn't prevent the accident from happening, and what to do if those young people lost their lives because of it. The job fair approached, and my stress grew heavier, almost crushing me. Mary's actions not only failed to ease my burden, but instead reminded me of the heart-wrenching pain from my past life. Finally, my emotions erupted completely. I suddenly stood up and forcefully shook off her arm. "Mary, what exactly do you want? Do you have to make me say the most unpleasant things before you will stop? I don't know what you're up to. Maybe I've misunderstood you, but I can assure you that there is no future between us." Mary was stunned. She opened her mouth and suddenly burst into tears. She immediately wiped away her tears fiercely with her sleeve and pulled my arm to the corner. I shook off her hand and turned my head away from her. Mary grabbed my shoulders tightly, pressing me against the wall with her body, and lifted her head to glare at me fiercely. "George, in your last moments of your previous life, you said you wouldn't be my husband again. I thought you were just confused from being ill, but it turns out you really are this heartless. We loved each other for 10 years. Don't you have even a little bit of nostalgia for me? I poured my heart and soul into you. What did I do wrong to make you treat me this way? Just say it clearly, then I can die in peace." Hearing her words, I was shocked and widened my eyes. It turned out that Mary had also been reborn. She actually knew everything about our past lives. My anger surged instantly, and I couldn't help but shout, "Mary, if you really love me, then why do you want to kill me?" Mary could hardly believe her ears and asked in disbelief, "What do you mean I killed you?" I was so angry that my vision went dark, and I wanted to push her away, but Mary clung to my waist like a madwoman, not letting me move. "You clarify how I have harmed you. I have taken care of you day and night. Does that count as harming you?" The more I struggled, the tighter she held on. I became anxious, and in a moment of impulse, I grabbed her hair and kissed her fiercely. Mary immediately froze and instinctively opened her mouth. I took the opportunity to bite her, and Mary let out a startled cry, quickly releasing her grip. I took a breath and looked at her, saying, "When I died in my last life, everything was already over. I said before that if there's a next life, I want to be your spouse again. Don't entangle me anymore. We won't have a future in this life." After saying that, I turned and left, leaving Mary behind, tears streaming down her face as she shouted my name. I ignored her and returned to the booth to watch the workers installing the nearly completed railing. No wonder Mary supported my suggestion for the job fair. It turns out she had known everything all along. In her past life, she caused my death, and in this life, she has done a good deed. But this life of mine will never be entrusted to her again. Just as I was lost in thought, a colleague came over to switch shifts. He hesitated for a moment and gossiped to me. I just saw Boss Mary running away in tears. I called out to her, but she ignored me. "Did you two have a fight?" I shot him a glare and said, "What does it matter to me whether Mary cries or not? Even if she died, it wouldn't concern me." My colleague smacked his lips and shook his head, mumbling, "I really don't know what Boss Mary sees in you. Mary is a rich heiress. If I had a girlfriend like that, I'd have to slap myself twice before arguing with her." Hearing his words, a surge of anger suddenly welled up inside me, as if my personal belongings had been pried into by someone else. I shot him a fierce glare and turned to leave the venue. Mary's car was not at the door. She really had left. The hot wind blew on my face, and I felt a bit melancholic. When I returned to the office, Mary was still not there. I sat in my office chair, lost in thought, asking myself, isn't this exactly the result I've always wanted? She no longer appeared in my sight, but why do I still feel an emptiness in my heart, as if a crucial part of life is missing? Is it really over? The job fair has finally started. Just like in my previous life, The entire venue was packed with people, and the students were crammed in so tightly that not even a drop of water could pass through. I looked at their vibrant faces, but the pressure in my heart reached its peak. In the years following my previous life, I met several mothers who had lost their children. They were not yet 50, but their hair had already turned gray, and their eyes were hollow and lifeless. The pain on their faces was deeply etched in my heart. Thinking about the opportunity one has now to save these young people, to spare their parents from enduring such suffering, makes my blood boil. At 10:37 a.m., what was meant to come has finally arrived. A few exclamations came from outside the door, and a figure dressed in a grayish-white short-sleeved shirt rushed into the venue. His eyes were vacant and terrified, and the fruit knife in his hand trembled incessantly. The students were so frightened that they were in a panic, all wanting to escape, but there were too many people, and they couldn't move at all. I jumped out of the booth without hesitation, pushed aside the students, and stood in front of him. He immediately noticed me and pointed the fruit knife at me. In my past life, I experienced a scene like this once, and facing the glaring blade again, I still felt afraid, but I could not back down. This was the crucial moment for me to change everyone's fate. The students around me were too bold. Seeing that I had blocked the attacker, they actually took out their phones and started filming me. I got anxious and waved my hands, shouting at them, "Get out of here! Everyone leave now!" I didn't expect that my shout would provoke the attacker. He swung the knife at me. I had no time to dodge, and I could see the tip of the knife about to stab me. At this critical moment, a figure rushed out from behind me. Mary held up a right shield, standing in front of me. "Joe G., your guardian angel has come to save you," she said. I was both angry and anxious, wishing I could slap her. How could she still say such childish things at a time like this? I snatched the shield away, grabbed Mary by the collar, and threw her back. Then I stepped forward myself. The patient swung a fruit knife violently against the shield. Suddenly, screams erupted all around, shaking the entire venue. I used all my strength to push the patient back with the shield, then hooked his leg, tripping him to the ground and quickly pressing down on him. The fruit knife fell to the side, and I picked it up and threw it far out the door, shouting for help. The colleagues finally reacted, jumping out of the booth to help me hold the patient down. A few brave boys also came over, and now the patient's legs were firmly held down by several hands, unable to move. I had neglected to prepare the rope when I shouted loudly for my colleague to unbuckle my belt. Mary popped up again, holding 2 pairs of handcuffs, which were surprisingly pink. I couldn't care about so much anymore. I quickly took hold of the patient's hands and feet. He was clearly terrified, lying on the ground and not daring to move. It had finally come to an end. I sat on the ground, looking up towards the door as a few kind-hearted people helped the patient's mother walk over. Her hair was gray, and her face was streaked with tears, just like those heartbroken parents I had seen in a past life. "It's really over." Mary knelt beside me, her hands frantically searching over my body as she cried and asked if I was hurt. I looked down at myself, finding no wounds. My spleen was still intact. Mary tightly wrapped her arms around my neck and began to cry loudly. I wanted to push her away, but the moment my fingers touched her, I felt a pang of reluctance and could only gently pat her shoulder. Since I was leaving anyway, I might as well treat this as a way to put an end to the 10 years of our past lives. The police took the patient away and temporarily sealed off the recruitment venue, leaving only us and a few students to take notes. The police asked us why we had prepared so many protective supplies, and I truthfully replied that there were too many people at the venue and that we were ensuring safety to protect these newly graduated students. The police nodded in appreciation, then changed the subject. Where did the handcuffs come from? I was taken aback for a moment and turned to look at Mary, only to have her immediately point at me and say, "It's my husband who secretly stuffed it into my bag this morning, saying he would need it tonight." I was stunned. Everyone was staring at me, their eyes filled with a meaningful smile. The police officer glanced at her, then at me, cleared his throat lightly, asked a few more questions, and then left. "The job fair can't be held today. The earliest that can happen is tomorrow." After a few students left, My colleagues also started packing up to go home. As they tidied up, they secretly glanced at me with a playful smile. On their lips, I didn't want to explain. After all, I was about to leave this city, and there was no need for an explanation. Mary, however, seemed very excited. She invited everyone back to the company for a dinner, saying it was to help everyone relax. I didn't refuse. The regrets of my past life were finally compensated in this life, and the gloom that had weighed on my heart for a full 10 years finally dissipated at this moment. Even her smile seemed much more pleasing to me that day. Everyone drank quite a bit. After the colleagues had eaten and drunk enough, they left early, leaving only Mary and me in the company. She was clearly drunk, clinging to me tightly and rubbing her face against mine. We had been married for 10 years, which can be considered as an old married couple. When she sat on my lap and I smelled the mix of wine and osmanthus fragrance, an inexplicable emotion surged in my heart. She rested her head on my shoulder, her gaze dreamy, and whispered softly in my ear, "You bad boy, why are you acting like a wooden block now? Didn't you used to love grabbing my hair and pushing my head down hard? It has to end." I took a deep breath and pushed her away with force. Mary thought I was going to do something, so she hurriedly tied her long hair up with a hair tie. I stood up and said to her, "I'm leaving. You can call a driver yourself." Mary looked at me in disbelief. After a few seconds of reaction, she seemed a bit at a loss for words. "I've been so proactive. Why are you treating me like this? After 10 years of our relationship, how can you come back as if you've completely forgotten? Did you never love me?" I almost couldn't help but speak up, but then I felt it was unnecessary. I said lightly, "My wish has been fulfilled in this lifetime. It's better that we don't become husband and wife." I don't want to ask, or rather, I don't dare to ask. I'm afraid of hearing the answer. At least I want to hear, since we owe each other nothing in this life. There's no need to add another wound to myself when I reach my old age and am about to leave this world. Perhaps I can still hold on to a glimmer of beautiful fantasy about Mary. In my puzzled and sorrowful gaze, I quickly left the company. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories from the past 10 years kept surfacing in my mind, and tears welled up in my eyes. I opened my computer and wrote a resignation letter. Hesitation would only bring me more pain. I leaned on the desk and unknowingly fell asleep until the piercing sound of the phone ringing woke me up. Mary asked me to change into formal attire and hurry to the job fair. I silently changed my clothes, looking at myself in the mirror, thinking that today would be the conclusion of our lives. When I arrived at the job fair, I found that my colleagues were very different from yesterday. They were all dressed in neat and crisp professional attire, and the female colleagues had particularly exquisite makeup. A colleague told me that a student filmed a video of my act of bravery. Yesterday, I posted it on Douyin, and it went viral instantly. The local TV station is coming to interview me today. As he spoke, he opened his phone to show me, and sure enough, it was the entire process filmed by the student who was closest at the time. The number of likes has already reached an astonishing 15 million, which means the view count is at least 200 million. I felt a wave of relief in my heart, thinking that Mary married me in her past life to use my reputation to boost her career. It might be better to take this opportunity in the interview to give her all the credit, which would fulfill her wish and bring a perfect conclusion to our 10 years of marriage. The reporters and cameramen from the television station arrived quickly and first interviewed a few colleagues who praised me to the skies. I felt a bit embarrassed listening to it all. When a reporter came to interview me, they asked Mary to join in the shot. I understood in my heart that this was definitely arranged by Mary. Mary linked her arm with mine, smiling exceptionally brightly as if she hadn't heard a word I said yesterday. The reporter smiled broadly and began the interview. "Mr. George, what made you dare to step forward at that time?" I cleared my throat and replied, "This is all thanks to Mary for her guidance to us. Without her, I wouldn't have such courage. She is a kind and brave person who often says that in life, one must know what to pursue and what to forego. If it's to protect the weak, one should be willing to sacrifice oneself." Everyone saw that she was the first to charge forward yesterday. The reporter hadn't had a chance to continue asking questions when Mary immediately interrupted me. She waved her hand and said, "My husband is too modest. He is usually a good man with a chivalrous heart. It wasn't me who rushed in first yesterday. Everyone knows it was him who stood up to protect everyone. Moreover, he not only protected everyone, but also didn't harm that person with mental illness, allowing a mother to not worry about her child. My husband is the truly kind and brave one. He is willing to protect everyone." I looked at Mary in surprise. The fame she had always longed for was now right in front of her, so why was she pushing it all onto me? If she just followed my lead and added the allure of being a beautiful CEO, her reputation would surely surpass mine. Could it be that she was afraid that taking all the credit alone would provoke others' resentment? I thought about it and decided to try to shift the focus back to Mary in the upcoming interview, but she repeatedly emphasized that it was all my own doing. The reporter couldn't help but laugh. "It's clear that you have a great relationship, always thinking about each other. May I ask if you're married?" Mary said somewhat shyly, "Not yet, but I think it will be soon. When the time comes, I will definitely treat everyone to wedding candies." I also didn't want to embarrass her in a formal setting, so I smiled and remained silent. After the interview, our booth was suddenly surrounded by people. Most of them were not there to apply for a job, but to take photos with me and Mary. I felt embarrassed to refuse, but to my surprise, Mary got excited, recorded a video, and even posted it on her own social media. On this day, I was so busy that I was drenched in sweat, but looking at those vibrant faces, I felt a surge of emotions and wanted to cry. Living is truly the most beautiful thing. The job fair has finally come to an end, and the moment for me to say goodbye has arrived. Back at the company, my colleagues were still excitedly planning to go out for drinks to celebrate being on TV, and they asked if Mary and I were going. Someone immediately slapped him and sarcastically said, "Are you stupid? We single folks are drinking to have fun, not to be blinded by your show of affection." The colleague shyly scratched his head, and a few people laughed as they walked away together. Mary smiled and scolded them a couple of times, then turned to me, took my hand, and led me upstairs to her office. She took out an exquisite metal lighter engraved with a shield. Since the day I was reborn, I have been prepared for this. I know that regardless of our past lives or this life, you will definitely risk your life to save me or others. I just want to tell you that I will protect you too. I did not reach out to take it. Silently, I took out the printed resignation letter from my bag. Mary looked over, pouting and smiling, but as she smiled, tears began to flow continuously down her face, wetting her cheeks. She tried hard to control her emotions, not wanting to appear too out of control. "Why, George? Can you tell me what exactly I did wrong?" I sighed and wiped her tears. "Then shouldn't you tell me first why you treated me that way in the last life?" Mary immediately widened her eyes and cried out, "I don't understand why you always say that I harmed you. I worked hard to earn money and did my best to take care of you at home when you were sick. I wish I could suffer in your place. How can what I do be considered harming you? What exactly have I done that makes you feel like I am harming you?" I gritted my teeth and said with a cold smile, "Before I die, I saw a special medicine the doctor prescribed for me thrown into the trash by you. You should know very well what you actually gave me." Mary was stunned. I looked at her in shock, my heart feeling completely torn apart. I turned to leave, but Mary tightly grabbed my clothes, hitting me a few times and crying, "Isn't it all because of you? Do you know that the spleen is the largest lymphatic organ, not a digestive organ? Every time you go to get medication, you insist that the fever is caused by poor digestion. I say it isn't, and you still argue with me. What am I supposed to do? You have a fever because you no longer have a spleen. Your immune system has malfunctioned, and you will ultimately die due to the collapse of your immune system, caused by the absence of the spleen, which is triggered. I only regretted not waking you up earlier after you died, you stubborn temper. Otherwise, how could you leave me all alone?" I was stunned. It turned out I had always misunderstood her. The nightmares in my heart were all due to my ignorance. Mary threw herself into my arms, her fists pounding on my shoulders as she called me a fool. I hesitated as I raised my arm slowly, wrapping it around her and holding her tightly in my embrace. I don't know how long it has been, but Mary cried herself out. I carried her to the sofa and gently patted her like soothing a child. She wrapped her arms around my neck and suddenly kissed me. When are we getting married? I looked at her and asked, are we divorced? Mary was taken aback, then smiled and tugged at my ear. You're being unreasonable. Last life is last life, but in this life, I want to have a grand wedding, even more beautiful than the last one. I can't. I need to record a video as evidence in case you do something foolish again one day and deny it. As she spoke, she took out her phone, and as soon as she opened it, she was stunned. The commemorative video she shot at the job fair had gone viral, but the comments section had completely gone off track. Please let my brother-in-law hold a class to teach me how to marry a rich and beautiful woman. I'll pay to listen. I'll pay $200. Please let me act in an episode. I am determined to serve the people. Please let Brother George make a video on how to use handcuffs for those who don't know the reason. Please enter in the search bar, Brother George Pink Handcuffs. I exchanged a glance with Mary, and then I saw her face filled with surprise. Can we start selling products now? I slapped her on the back and said irritably, stop embarrassing yourself and hand over the phone. She sat on me with a look of grievance and handed me her phone. I opened the camera and aimed it at us, tightly embracing each other, capturing this most beautiful moment in time. That morning, I stretched lazily, getting ready to get out of bed. However, Mary coiled around me like a snake, tightly wrapping her arms around my neck, her whole body hanging on me. I quickly hugged her, fearing that she would fall. Mary whispered sweetly in my ear, honey. The voice was so sweet, it was sickening, and I got goosebumps all over my body. I quickly put her back on the bed. Mary rolled around in bed, wailing as if she were performing a tragic scene. No, I want to go to work with you. I just want to be with you. I listened, pinched her a bit, and said angrily, is this what you call working? Do you know what they're calling me online now? The god of handcuffs in ancient Greece. I feel embarrassed to tell others what I do when I go out, and you still want to embarrass both of us together. Mary seemed to ignore it, continuing to roll around on the bed, calling out for her husband. I was really at my wit's end with her, so I had no choice but to let her change clothes and go out with me. Mary immediately became as happy as a child, laughing and calling out. I looked at her, my eyes slightly stinging. In my past life, although she always smiled gently at me, she had never been as happy as she is now. I know that it is because all the burdens of the past life were on her alone. In this life, I only hope that she can be carefree, and I will always protect her by her side.